Welcome everyone to Spilling the Tea with SD and Marlene, where we serve the hottest tea. Join me and my baby stripper voice.
And me welcoming you all to eavesdrop onto our uncensored opinions. This platform is used to inform, laugh, and potentially inspire others to speak out about things we may all be thinking about but are too afraid to say out loud.
And don't forget, babes, if the shoe fits, wear it. Welcome back, guys, to Spilling the Tea with SD.
And Marlene. And we have a special guest.
Yes, we do. So you can announce her since you're taking my shine.
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
No, you do it.
All right, we have a special guest. I am here with my dear friend, Stephany Mejia. She is a licensed therapist in North Carolina, and I'm so happy to have her here with us. I know her since I'm 14 years old, since freshman year, and we've kept in constant contact. And I'm so happy to have her here with such an important topic that a lot of people have been requesting. So, Stephany, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello. Yes. So me and Marlene have known each other for quite some time. Since we were 14. We are now in our early 15, so not that much older. But yeah, I'm a licensed therapist and I live in North Carolina. So I practice here, but I'm originally from New York City. My parents are Dominican and Nicaraguan, and yeah, I'm here to talk about mental health, which is today's theme topic, right?
Yeah. So every time we put out a post or like something of like engaging from our audience, we always get like, oh, like talk about mental health. But like mental health is such a broad, large topic. And we're just covering maybe like more of like the surface of it. But I feel like it's a very scary conversation that people are like scared to have. Esteban, what do you like? How do you feel about talking about mental health, especially like on our podcast? It's like one of like more of a serious topic that we don't really touch on.
So like you said, that a lot of people always requested us to talk about like mental health. And we always said we have to do a research or maybe get somebody that's more experienced in the field because like you said, we're more of like a
Let's
funny,
talk shit.
lighthearted, like, like let's just get through the day type of podcast. But, we can also get deep and real.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about your work stuff and your demographic that you work with, and why is mental health so special and important to you?
Yeah, so mental health is important to me because I'm someone who's been to therapy. So I have the experience of what it's like to be in therapy and just kind of get the support and assistance from a therapist, right? So I kind of have the experience from before I was a therapist. And then I have a lot of interest in the Latino community. So working with people who are first generation, like child of immigrants, working with the Latino population directly, and working a lot with college age people, as well as a newer interest of mine, which is perinatal mental health, which is basically supporting people who can have babies through their journey, and that's before and after. But yeah, I'm really passionate about mental health because I've seen how it hasn't been addressed in our community in the way that maybe could be helpful. And I think we have made some progress, and I'm sure we also have like a long way to go when it comes to the conversation about mental health. So I'm glad y'all are talking about it, because even if it is like lighthearted conversation, I think that can still be more digestible and approachable to people than making it a super like your tie is up here and it's like uptight and talk about mental health so seriously. I think there's also a way to talk about it and make it approachable, which I think you guys can do.
Yeah. Esty, why is mental health an interesting topic to you?
I
in any
I
shape or form.
so like I love the human brain and like I love to know why people do things.
Hmm.
I always just like when people do certain things, I always want to know just why. Like what got you there? Like why would you do that? Like so I've always just been like very interested in that kind of thing and like the psychology and then of course with mental health. Everybody struggles with that. I think that's something that everybody can relate. Um and like when we talked earlier, like when we were like just discussing ideas, like we touched upon that everybody has something that they struggle with for their mental health and like what I struggle with to me is very deep, but like it might not be the same for you. But yeah, everybody has that thing that like we can all relate that we all just struggle daily or just work on a daily, not struggle.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, I think for a very long time, I said, oh, I want to try therapy. And then something really drastic happened in my life. And I'm like, oh, I really need to go to therapy. Like, I really need to get to this. I think mental health is really important for the Latino community because, and this is something that my therapist told me the other day, like, we're very codependent. Um, we're very, we don't have boundaries. And so boundaries is it can be viewed as a negative thing, but also it can be viewed as a positive thing and it can lead to better relationships. So in my situation, I think having boundaries has helped me with my parents and them also to just see me as a grown woman and not their child. And so I feel like discussing these things of like where does it come from can really help our generation. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but I try to like break the cycle and also have boundaries that so that my mental health is not affected. And I feel that, I can just move along. People say all the time, like, oh, you're so positive and etc. But I feel like people don't understand the mind or what I had to go through to be positive or to stay in a positive state. So I think that's really important. Um, I think this conversation came up because I was talking to some people and it was just like not a safe space to talk about mental health. Would you say um when you guys talk to your friends and mental health comes up, is it like a conversation that maybe people don't kind of like tiptoe around?
I think it depends on the friend.
Yeah. I think
There
if
are
you're
some
having
friends there's some friends that are more like in tune with their emotion, they can express themselves better. And there are friends that just don't like to go there. I used to not want to go there with people. And now I have learned to verbalize what I'm saying and like what I'm thinking and like, just be vulnerable, which is very hard for me to do.
I can relate to that.
Hmm.
How about Steph? How about like within like your community or your circles? I mean, you're a lot more like, I feel like this is like more common for you. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I
I mean,
imagine it's different in different circles.
yeah, like it's interesting. I have my therapist circle, so like all the friends in that circle are therapists. And so we're always talking about like feelings, emotions, like how can we like the book to read or things related to like running our businesses and things like that. But at the same time, there's like groups of friends of mine that they're either just starting the journey themselves or, they're like starting to, question whether or not they should go to like more formal therapy versus doing like self-help books or doing like coaching or doing other types of like supports for their mental health, right? So I think when it comes to being a therapist and friends of mine, I think they have maybe a lot of expectations of me maybe being different, but like I'm as human as they are, right? And I think sometimes like the expectation can be, oh, like you're a therapist, so like you should have the answers. And it's like, no, like I'm gonna fuck up the same way y'all do.
Yeah.
And maybe I might have a little bit of more I might notice it sooner, or maybe sometimes I might not do that thing, but I still like, I'm still living the same life that a lot of us are and navigating a lot of the same things. So
I was gonna say, do you see a difference when you talk to your friends that are like more your age compared to like talking to about mental health with your family? I feel like that is like a large difference, a very big disparity between those two circles.
yeah, there's an age disparity. Like I feel like maybe some of the older generations, maybe our parents' age, you know, my mom is 58, I think, 59. Um, I would say that they're a little bit more resistant to like working through some of what it takes to go to therapy, which is like facing yourself, like admitting what you may contribute to certain situations, having like the ability to self-reflect. And sometimes self-reflection can be really hard because it brings up a lot of emotions. And sometimes we just don't want to see it.
Especially our parents that they don't want to say they're wrong, or they just view us like we're still their children.
Yeah.
I feel like that is a very big one when it comes to like my parents, and like when I have a conversation and they just don't view me on the same level as them. But they're still expecting me. They're still expecting things from me as I was on their same level.
Yeah. I feel like with friends and like people our age, like we can come to the terms of like we can agree to disagree and like just move forward. When it comes to like older people and like our parents or like older aunts and uncles, like they always see us as like we're the elders and you have to respect what we say. But it's like I can respect what you're saying, but I don't have to agree with it.
And that's when you and your mom fight.
All day, every day. All day, every day.
Um, One thing that I want to say, that I've noticed. So when I was single, um, I've noticed that some men are trying to be better. Like they are trying to go to therapy. I met some men that they were like, I go to therapy, or I have been to therapy before. And then there's just some that are like, I'm absolutely not going to therapy. And I see like such a big disparity between women being open to going to therapy and trying to work on their habits and who they are, opposed to men. So would you say that, like, I looked up some statistics, would you say, like, in your own experience, that women are a little bit more open to receiving therapy or seeking therapy?
I think generally speaking, there's always going to be a societal impact on like why women would reach out for therapy maybe a bit more than men, and why it's still looked down upon for a lot of men to, go to therapy. And it's interesting because while I do work with the majority of women in my own practice, I actually have quite a few men that I work with. And the common denominator among them, I would say, is if they're not fathers themselves, like young fathers, like under 40, they are like first generation children of immigrants. So a lot of them share that same identity of like, it's hard to be this like person that's super responsible, and these are the expectations of my family and my culture, and this is how I don't feel like I fit in. And they're growing up in the more American culture, so they also feel kind of out of place, or they feel like they're trying to make sense of, their family culture versus the broader culture in the country, right? But it's interesting because I feel like the men that I do work with, like they're very open and available to it. So maybe in some ways that number may change over the years, right? Like maybe the hope is that like there'll be a shift, that there'll be more people coming to therapy. And I think it's also because we probably need more men as therapists. I know there's been quite a lot of men that want a male provider, and that's okay, right? Like maybe they just feel more comfortable working with someone who's male identified. But we just don't have enough therapists that are male. Maybe in bigger cities, there may be more, but in North Carolina, who are also Latino, I mean, I would say that's probably
The
like just
pool.
a handful. Yeah, a small pool of them.
Um, that goes to the question of like when selecting a therapist for yourself. For me, like I find it more helpful when the therapist I'm working with, like she knows a little, like she's from my background, like, you know, she might be Latina, she might be like from the city or, you know, understands like the Dominican culture. Um, so when selecting a therapist, like what would be maybe some hints or some clues or some helpful tips for those that may be seeking?
I think you got to know yourself in the process of looking for a therapist, because if you know that you're going to go to therapy and someone who's too soft and too nice, and you need someone a little bit more firm because you might like wiggle around some of the topics and you're not really trying to go there and you're like, tú sabes, like doing that thing, then you
Yeah.
might not want to work with someone who's not going to challenge you, right? Like it would make sense to maybe want to work with someone that's a little bit more direct or a little bit more, challenging you. Another piece of it is like some people want to go to therapy and they want to be the centerpiece of that therapy. So they might not want a therapist that talks too much, right? Like there's situations where that happens. I think sometimes energies, like, I don't know, like, I feel like maybe the vibe, right? Like when you kind of meet
Yeah.
with someone, being able to say like, do they mesh with me? And some of us are good at like identifying pretty quickly if we think that person is going to mesh with us. Like the type of energy we get from that person. Like, are they calm? Like I could not work with someone who's super hype as a therapist. Like I need you to be like somewhat chill, because if you're like super hype, like I'm gonna be like, whew, like I'm ready to like, I just worked out for an hour, right?
Yeah.
And then of course they're training, right? Like you wanna, whatever you're going to therapy for. Let's say, I've been to therapy for like my own relationship with my parents. Working with someone who has experience in that, who can talk about like family dynamics and all of that piece of it. But I agree with Marlene about the piece of identity, because I feel like the majority of the people that seek me out, it's because like I'm Latina, I'm first generation. I grew up in New York City. Like I have certain identities that people are seeking me out for directly, because they're like, yes, I want to work with someone who gets where I'm coming from to some degree. And I don't have to over explain it. Like I don't have to tell them every single detail of what it's like to live in Washington Heights, for example, right? Like,
Yeah.
does that make sense?
When you said all of those things, I just thought about first generation, pressure, Latina, pressure, living in the city, a lot of pressure. So like you kind of can relate to them on like all those things, all those barriers. Especially being first generation children, which we all have in common here.
Yeah.
And
Wait,
go ahead.
I have a question before we move on.
Yeah.
Because so you said that people come to you for specific things of like you want to talk about your parents or certain things. What if someone's looking to just like they don't know what they want, but they want to talk to somebody? Like, will they just come to you and just say like, I just give like a blanket statement, like I don't know what I want to talk about, I just want to talk?
Yeah, I think like most people have some level of understanding that like something is happening in my life, right? Like something like my dating life is not where I want it to be, or I don't feel like my self-confidence is up there, right? Or something's off. Like you just kind of know to some degree that something is going on. You might not have the language for it. So I think working with a therapist, like you can get to a place of getting the language, like labeling the thing that's going on. But you could definitely start with a therapist to just be like, hey, this is exploratory. I really, I know there's something, but like, I don't know what it is yet. So I just need help
Mm.
trying to identify that. And it's totally okay. I love my first time therapy clients because they're like a clean slate. They're like, I don't know what to expect. I don't know how this is going to go. And that's one of my favorite things because I feel like after some time of building that relationship, you actually get to really learn a lot about where they're at. And they're a lot more aware than I think they think they are,
Yeah.
I
you
can
know?
I can attest to that.
Um,
I was that person.
what do you like? So you said if the vibes are right. As a therapist, can you also like say like, "Hey, I don't think I'm the right person for you." Like, can you like break up with a client?
100%. Yes. It's actually my job to make sure that the people that I work with, that I can actually meet them where they're at, right? Because if someone comes to me and they're like, I want to work on like binge eating or anorexia or bulimia, right? Those are areas where I really don't have that training. And so it would be irresponsible of me to work with someone who their main focus is to get like food therapy, right? Or like the type of therapy that's going to support them in their, eating, and like body image stuff, right? Also, there's sometimes you talk to people and you're like that connection is not there. So like you learn how to be very good about letting them down in a positive way instead of, oh yeah, no, you're not the person I want to work with, or I
Like,
can work
you
with.
need
So you're
help.
like, yeah,
Call
it's like
Dr. Phil.
you're like, hey, you're like, hey, call Dr. Phil. Exactly. No, like,
Yeah.
hey, these are other people I recommend that could really fit what you need. And then, it's up to them to follow up with those people or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say we're all children of first generation. All of our parents came from another country, and they settled here, and then we came along. Um, do we have would we all say we could all mention one pressure that we get from our parents that leads us to maybe feeling pressure or not knowing how to deal with the pressure?
Just one.
Yeah, just one, because I was like, just one because we don't have all night.
All right, go first. I gotta think about mine. I gotta think
Um,
of my one.
for me, since my parents are very big on financials, um, being like having a lot of pressure to own, to have more wealth than them. That's one of big pressure that I get, especially from my mom. But that's like they're like, we came to the States to have the American dream, so you need to have like the American dream times two. So
Yeah.
that's my personal pressure from them.
Yeah, but it's like when you came here, you bought the house for $5.
Exactly. They don't be understanding, and they don't understand that they do a lot of background checks.
Yeah. I think the pressure for me is that just always trying to like be better. I feel like, and then the pressure is also like you not like you wanna you wanna like your parents to be proud of you, but you also wanna make yourself like proud of yourself, and you don't wanna like do things that you don't want to just because your parents want to. I think like for me, with like the first generation parents, they don't understand that we thankfully because of them we have options of where we want to go in life. And I think with my mom a couple of years ago, I was leaving a job that I had been miserable for a long time. I already talked about this in podcast, so like refer back. But I was miserable, like super miserable. And then when I quit, she told me like, "Oh, why are you leaving? Like you have an office job." But it's like, yeah, I'm miserable every day. And she didn't get the fact that I can go out and find another job and better my life. Or if I don't like this, I can switch careers. So that's that pressure they give you of like they're just not understanding that we don't live the same life here.
Yeah. The money piece, the like what you should be doing for a career, or like, do you leave a job? Like, there's definitely, you know, they're used to like staying at one position or one job for like years and years and years. Yeah, I think for me, it's like a combination of being a first gen and also being the eldest daughter. And I was telling friends over the weekend that was like, I always have to be ready. I have learned in this life that like, I gotta be on it, like I gotta get that college degree and I gotta be on it. What's next? So I think for me, like that first gen pressure is like always thinking about what's next, like it never being enough, always thinking about how I can better it, how I can, do more, like give more of myself. And how can I like, I think a lot of people may relate to this, which is like, if my parents sacrificed so much, like, how can I be worthy of that sacrifice? It's like paying a debt that like you can never pay back. Like, there's no way you can pay back the debt of your parents coming here and whatever they had to do to get here and everything that they went through while being here. Right. And then being like, oh yeah, I'm going to pay that debt off in this lifetime. It's like, there's just no way to do that. Like,
I hate my mom's words. ¿Para qué yo parí? And I'm like,
It
I
also
didn't
doesn't
tell you
help.
to birth me.
It also doesn't help that they throw that in your face whenever they're pissed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I came here to give you a better life, and you're gonna go out and be a hoe. Yeah, I am.
Yes.
I am.
I want pleasure.
But yeah, like they put that pressure, and then we put it on ourselves too.
Yeah.
Because adding to what you're saying, like I feel like when like I struggle with like celebrating myself in certain things of like if I have a goal, like let's say a promotion for work, I get to the promotion and then I'm like, what's next? And it's like, all right, like calm down because you need to like
Be happy.
like relax,
Yeah.
be happy. Or like when I like when you do something and then you're like, okay, like I want the next thing, it's like just congrats. Like when I bought a car, everybody was like, congrats, you bought a car, and I'm like, yeah, but I want something else. And it's like, no, like be happy, be proud. So we add that pressure to ourselves.
Let's take a little break and then we'll be back with more talk with Stephany Mejia, our great friend and therapist for the hour. Welcome back, guys, to Spilling the Tea with Esty and Marlene. And we're super excited today because we have Stephany Mejia, our licensed therapist from North Carolina. She's on with us today, and we're talking about mental health. And we're gonna have all her information at the bottom. I do know some people that listen to us from North Carolina. So you guys can have her information if you guys ever want to reach out, or potentially speak to her on some things that may be going on in your life. But yeah, let's jump into a question that came up for me a while ago. If you started dating somebody and they said that they attend therapy, would that be a red, green, or orange flag? How would you view it?
I feel like it would be a green flag.
I think for me it's green, but I also would like to know like what led you to do therapy, and I guess like how long, because if you just went to therapy like last week and you just started, that means that you're still in the process.
Well, that's true. I need to know why, because imagine you're going because you killed somebody. Like, I don't want to be with you.
damn, court mandated therapy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Have you ever
no.
done those?
No, I haven't actually.
Thank God.
I feel like I would want to do it though.
You would want?
I would be like, why did you kill the person? Tell me everything.
Well, because you like psycho killer shit.
Yes, yes.
And
So
you
I
want
would
to
be all into
analyze
that.
the mind of like Ted Bundy.
Yes.
So you would be into that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
Oh,
it's overall it's a green flag for me.
okay. Good, good. I feel like sometimes people that may not be open, they may view it as like, oh, you're going to therapy, like you got to work on some shit. Because some people, like, they don't receive it well. Some, like, you know, like the old school saying, like for Dominicans, like for my family, they'll be like, ay, pero eso es pa loco. Eso es, tiene que
Well,
hablar con, yeah.
that shows that you're not grown and evolved like us.
Well, yeah, I don't really want to date you if you're thinking like that anyway.
Yeah.
But what kind of signs would you say depression and anxiety may look like for a person that is first generation or first generation children? Steph.
What kind of signs you would see in like a first generation person who has depression or anxiety?
Yeah, and they maybe like they just don't know it.
Perfectionism, like trying to be perfect, you know, like putting a lot of pressure on themselves to like have the job, have the title, you know, keep it all together, like being prim and proper. I see a lot of that. Like really hardworking people who are like, I'm gonna do all these wonderful things, and then they get there and it's like, I feel empty inside. And it's that like connection to the first generation piece of
And
it.
it's scary about what people think, because that's a very like old school Spanish thing of like, ¿qué va a pensar la gente?
Mm.
And it's like, I don't give a fuck what Fulana thinks. Fulana don't pay my bill. Neither does Fulano or her husband.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like some people still hold on to that. Thankfully, I let go of that shit a long time ago.
Yeah, you did, because the fulana and the fulano and the fulana are trying to pop up in your house.
Oh yeah, I give zero fucks what people think, and I live such a happy life.
Mm-hmm.
I love that for you. I love that for us, to be honest.
Yeah.
Would you say like being, I guess, like once you have achieved all of those goals that you have for yourself and you're still feeling empty, you know, just like you're feeling that empty feeling, would that be like a reason to start thinking or like start looking within of like, why am I feeling empty? Why do I feel unfulfilled? Would that be like a good question or a good like way to start therapy for a person?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense to, you know, kind of like you were saying in your in the example that we're sharing right now, is like you've done all these things to like do it right. Like you've worked out and your body looks great, or you like went to school and you like got the degree, or you got the title at the job and the promotion at the job, and you got the car and you got the whatever. Like if at the end of all of that, like you're still seeking to fill something and like it's not enough, or you've done all those things and you don't think you've done it well and you still feel unsatisfied, like, yeah, maybe looking at within, like, what was my motivation to begin with to do all of this? Like, what am I running away from? Like, am I running away from feelings of inadequacy? Am I running away from feelings of never being enough? Like, do I have abandonment stuff? Like, did my dad or my mom or my caregiver leave me when I was young, and now I'm over here trying to like check all the check boxes I can and get it right, and it's still not enough, right? I still don't feel like it's enough. I think there's never a wrong time to start therapy, but you do have to have some sort of desire and interest, right? Like you got to start there. You got to be like, I'm curious. Like, voy a meter el pie para ver, you know, what is it really like?
I just got like a thought in my head of like, though, you know, we live in such of a world that like we have YouTube, we have music on, we have everything on, and like when people can't just like simply sit with their own thoughts, you know, that is something of more of like, for me personally, I would be like, you know what, like something is going on within me that like I can't sit with my thoughts. I always need to have something on, entertain myself, always on social media, always like being out there. I can't really sit with my thoughts. For me, I would like start questioning myself.
So I have a question before we move on. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you started going therapy for like the people that want to start. a lot of people, like, let's say they have a breakthrough, they go to you for a while, and then they feel better. Like, you should still keep going. You shouldn't like stop going cold turkey, right? Like, because it's like a maintenance, like you have to keep going, even if you go like less, but you should keep checking in.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it sort of is this story of you go to weekly therapy and then you start feeling better and you start meeting some of your goals and you start deciding you're going to go every 2 weeks. And then after every 2 weeks, you go monthly, and then at the time of monthly, like I have a few people that I see monthly and they're like, that's their maintenance, like on a
Mhm.
monthly, level, they do that. And then I think that there's people who've done monthly and then they're like, I need more now. Like something changed in their lives. They noticed that something new came up. Like they're not loving something they're going through because life changes every day, right?
Yeah.
So something like they'll come back and be like, I want weekly again, or I want bi-weekly again. But there is a time where like you do end therapy, and maybe that means you end therapy for some time and you don't see that therapist again and you move on to another therapist and work on something new, or it does mean that you need some time in between therapy and you take a break, right? And then you go back to therapy. But definitely I would recommend a commitment of at least a year for most people. Just straight off the bat, like you need a commitment of at least a year. I mean, that's not written in any books. That's just based off like what I would say would be good for an entry level person in therapy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's also like for me, my personal experience, it's also like a roller coaster. 'Cause I went in for like a heartbreak, then it was because of like all the anger I was feeling, and I was like, okay, this is not normal. And then like I went through my own emotions of like being within that moment, and then that led me to be like, you know what, like I need to work on like some family healing or not repeating the same cycle from my family, or why am I feeling this way towards X, Y, and Z. And then like now I'm at like I want to work on forgiveness therapy, and like I want to be able to let that go because I don't want to hold on to any of things that things that happened to me in my past. So it's like I feel like there's always something you can work on, but you have to be open to, for me personally, to receive the universe signs, like the
Yeah.
signs of the universe for me. So, and there's different type of therapy as well. So I feel like I've been like on an open book lately or for a long time. So my journey has been different.
Yeah, it's definitely a roller coaster. Like I feel like most people go into therapy with like one thing in mind, and then they're like, oh, so you're telling me that there's 1, 2, 3 things that I was like kind of aware of or not really aware of, and now you're bringing it to my attention. I think, your therapist has a responsibility to kind of curate the space. And aside from like listening to what you're trying to work on and focusing on that and giving you the space for what you're interested in, like getting support and help for, they're also going to use their expertise to be like, I see that, your communication skills, or, oh, I see that like maybe you need, maybe that thing, that conflict could have been gone a little differently, like it's also their job to kind of be like, call bullshit, to be like,
Yeah.
I see what you did there. I have clients that I have that type of relationship with that I'd be like, you sure? And like we have that type of relationship that I can do that with them. And then there's other people that just need a little bit more of that, like that hand holding, right? Of like,
Mhm.
let's take it easy with you, but let's see if
Mhm.
you can notice what's going on here. But yeah, I think what do you think sometimes like stops people from like setting up that first appointment with therapists in general, aside from like the society pressure, the first generation stuff, the Latino stuff? Like, is there anything else that you think gets in the way?
I
So you
think
can go
people
first.
probably, what is it called? Like block things out in their mind. And like, certain things could be there, but you don't remember like how everything went down or whatever the situations were. So I think people are afraid to like opening that door and just having just things that you might not even remember come back out to surface.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I did, what is it called? EDMR,
EMDR.
EMDR therapy, and it like takes you into like really being in a traumatic situation, so you like remember all these things that you really like had blocked, and so you think that like you haven't dealt with it. It's just that you blocked it for so long that you don't remember, so it's in the back of your mind. And
Which
so like,
that's your
yeah,
mind's defense mechanism of like just what is it, fight or flight?
yeah. So,
Yeah, your
um,
brain's trying to protect itself from like whatever happened and all the details of that thing or things that have happened.
I was gonna say, people don't make it a priority, one, and two, I think we all lie to ourselves, um, in a way that we are like, oh, we don't need that, or oh, we'll get to that in another time, or oh, like that's not for me, or whatever. Like they don't make it a priority, and I feel like you have to be very self-aware of yourself. And also you also have to put yourself first to go to therapy and work on yourself and not be I feel like first gen children for us, like we put ourselves last sometime because we want to help everybody else. But then if we don't, then we like become, we don't make ourselves a priority. So then we don't put it to the forefront, but we got to take care of ourselves to be strong to take care of everybody else.
Hmm. That's a
Um,
good.
yeah, that was like that came like you have to make yourself a priority, and I think people sometimes don't make themselves a priority.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like we all make ourselves a priority, like to go to Sephora, to look cute, to get an outfit, to do this, to do that. But I feel like people really need to sit down and really look into like, why am I not happy or satisfied or confident, or where is this coming from? Back to like what Esty says, like the why is this happening? Where is this coming from?
Yeah. And I think like over the years I've also learned because I used to be really feisty. Like I used to be ready to pop off. Like I was on site type of thing. And now I'm able to like if something happens, I am still feisty. But I'm able to like actually like sit back and think about certain things and be like, why am I upset over this? Or why am I reacting this way? And I'm able to sit with myself and talk about it and see like if I'm reacting just out of anger or hurt and like what about that hurt me or like what about that interaction bothered me. So yeah, becoming self-aware is it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of us never learned how to deal with our emotions. Like a lot of us grew up in households where like either there were like only one person was allowed to have big emotions, whether that be dad or mom or tia or grandma, whoever it was that was in the household. There was maybe one person who was like, or like whatever it is, like there was maybe a bigger than life person. Maybe you had a really depressed parent. Maybe you had a parent that
Mhm.
he like was like checked out mentally and they were there physically, but they weren't there emotionally. They weren't available to you, right? Um, you grew up maybe in a household where there's a lot of that generational trauma piece of it. And when there is that, that has a real effect on the whole family system.
Mhm.
So, going to therapy later on in life can feel like such a big challenge because you were never taught that, like talking about emotions and your thought pattern and having people be invested in how you feel about things and how you see the world is of importance. Like you grew up maybe thinking those things aren't important because there's no space for me in this household or in this society to feel the feelings that I have. I was always like a super sensitive kid growing up. And I think that like probably my caregivers didn't really know how to deal with that. didn't really give me the tools to deal with being a sensitive kid. So it was just seen as like a bad thing, right? Like, why does Stephany feel so much? And like, look at me now. I'm a therapist. That's what I do for a living. I hold people's emotions, right? Like
Yeah.
this, I can touch, I can tap into other people's emotions. But that also means that like I could have probably had really benefited from having extra support, emotionally speaking, at some point in my life, right? So it's interesting though.
So I have a question. What are good ways to like communicate your feelings to like what advice would you give somebody that struggles to like talk about their feelings or express their feelings or even set boundaries? Because to me, I love a boundary. I love to just tell people like no. And I love to just tell people no. And I don't have to give you a reason why. I always say no is what is a one word sentence. But some people struggle with setting boundaries. So like where would you tell people to start?
Hmm. When people are struggling to set boundaries, a lot of times is because they might just not know how to. Like they just might think that those things are unacceptable. They're not normal, right? If you grew up in a household where like you were taking a shower and you're grown and you've got your mom in there brushing her teeth and there's no, your mom reads your diary and there is no autonomy and no like individuation, like you're not your own individual self, like it may never feel like you could be like it could be normal to set a boundary, to say no, to say not right now. But I also think like people pleasing is a big one. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
us, regardless of background, we may just really have a hard time doing that with our most loved ones because those are the people that we're supposed to be the most open with, the most available to, like the most loving with. And especially in Latino culture, like family is such a core value, is everything. But at the same time, like if you have a harmful or toxic family or a dysfunctional family, how does that work, right? Like how can you sort of say I'm gonna set a boundary when your family is like, fuck your boundary, right? Like they're like, who cares about how you feel, right? So I think therapy with the right therapist also teaches you to be okay with the blowback of setting boundaries. For those who have difficulty setting boundaries, there's also a lot of fear. They're like, if I do this, are they gonna like me? If I do this, are they still gonna love me? If I do this, will I get like pushed out of the family type of deal?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, especially with my family. I don't have no boundaries. But it's really important. I feel like I even like because I'm a manager at my role in my job, I'm like, we're gonna have some boundaries with these clients. Like, and one of my associates had told me, she's like, I want to let you know that because I've been training under you, like I learned how to set boundaries. And I was like, that I was like, yes. She's like Indian American. So, they're also a very like
Mm-hmm.
family is like very like the family has no boundary either. So I feel like she doesn't know how to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say for a person that feels a lot or is very in tune with their feelings, and maybe dealing with some type of depression or anxiety, how can it like a partner support that person? Or how can maybe a family member support somebody that may be going through depression or some type of anxiety, or they just feel a lot, like their feeling is very heightened.
Mm-hmm. I think like getting educated on what that person might be going through. So like being familiar with what depression looks like, being familiar with what anxiety looks like, because if you understand what you're looking at, it may feel like, oh, wait a minute, I see the signs. If someone is suicidal, if someone is, wanting to self-harm in any way, like you can kind of catch on to the signs to some degree if you're more educated on it instead of like not knowing about it at all and sort of not even having an idea of what to be looking for if that's the case.
Mhm.
Um, I think when it comes to supporting someone who's in the middle of depression and anxiety, is that just knowing that you taking care of yourself is really important. Because as much as you want to be there for someone else in the middle of their own process, and you want to be loving and kind and patient, and you want to make sure nothing bad happens to them, there's also this piece around like you making sure that you're in a good place. Because if you don't feel like you're in a good place, then it's like the blind leading the blind. It may just lead to more frustration. It may lead to more resentment. It may lead to now two people being depressed, possibly, right?
Yeah.
And just really understanding that like mental health is such a personal experience, and the way it shows up for us in the way that we're experiencing depression or anxiety is very unique. Like obviously there's like very general ideas of how anxiety and depression looks like, right? Like if you're irritable, if you're constantly on edge, if you feel like you can never relax, if you feel like, you know, your mind is always like going 1,000 miles an hour, and, you know, you may be dealing with some anxiety, right? Or on the other hand, you may feel like you're constantly low energy and you feel fatigued and you see the world through a really negative lens. Like maybe you're going through a low mood, maybe you're dealing with some depressive symptoms, right? So if you get familiar with what you're looking at, you may just have a different approach. But just being present, you know, sometimes with people, it's not about having the right words. It's not even about being able to fix it or get rid of it for them. Maybe it's just like going on a walk, going, you know, helping them go work out if they've been wanting to go work out, but they haven't been able to, right? Or, you know, maybe doing something kind for them. Like, hey, I noticed that you haven't been able to like clean your bedroom. Let's help you clean your bedroom, right? Just having someone that's kind of just prepared to kind of step in and give you that hand if needed.
That's a good one. That's a good advice. Because I feel like for me, I am like such a fix it mentality that like if you come to me with a problem, I wanna I wanna fix it for you. But sometimes I just have to like realize that maybe you don't want me to fix it. You just want me to sit there and you just want to
Listen.
talk to me. Because I'm the type that's like, if you tell me this, like I can come up with a list of how we're gonna fix this. But you know, sometimes you just have to be sensitive to people that might not want to fix it yet. They're not ready.
Mm-hmm.
So I always say, come to me when you're ready.
Or you could be like, do you want me to give you a solution, or do you want me to just hear you out, right? Like just giving people options on what it is that they might
Well,
need
yeah.
from you.
Now I tell people when they vent to me, do you want me to listen? Do you want my opinion? Because my opinion is very unfiltered. If I have to tell you about yourself, I am. And you might not like it. So I'm gonna need you to know, do you
Which
want the
one you
opinion or
want?
not? And also with setting boundaries, because for me, like a lot of people come to me with their problems. I don't know why. And now I have come to the point that like I can tell people, you know what? I don't have the mental capacity today to hear you out.
That's a good
And
boundary.
well, it might sound fucked up, but like if I have a lot of shit going on, I don't want to hear about you and your man. I have my own shit. So I'm now capable of saying like, you know what? I don't have it today. I might not have it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's
yeah,
okay.
it has to be okay because that's what it is.
All right. Any other remarks? Good. Steph, I was gonna ask you why. No, I was gonna ask you. You hold a lot of space and space for other people's feelings and thoughts. How do you take care of yourself? Because I know that like people say like mentally drained and physically drained are like two separate things, but I personally have been in both industries in both, and being mentally drained is more exhausting than physically drained. So how do
Yes.
you take care of yourself after listening to everybody's thoughts, feelings, anxiety over the phone or in person?
I think that changes week to week, because I have weeks where I'm like ready to go and like everything is smooth sailing with my clients, in my opinion. And then I have weeks where it's like everyone's, processing difficult or more complicated topics. And in those weeks, like, honestly, it's a lot of sitting in silence, right? Like just being able to slow down. I've had to learn the art of like just not doing as much, because I've always been the type of to like do, like what else? What's next? And I feel like this year has taught me of like, I know you want to do more. Like, I know you could like fill your day up even more, but like it's already full. So like, it's okay to just sit there and just like reprogram my brain instead of seeing it as like being unproductive, seeing it as a way of actually, bouncing back from those hard days or hard weeks, and that's okay to just
You
like
should teach Marlene how to do that.
because
He
she's
knows my
a little ant that's always moving around.
yeah.
Oh my God, she stresses me out when she tells me what she has to do for the day. Like, I'll be like,
Tell me how you
what do you,
really feel.
I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I already went to the gym. I went to Trader Joe's. I washed clothes. I did this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to go here. And I'm like, I haven't left my bed, but that's okay.
I can attest. I can attest.
No, I was gonna say like that question is very relatable because as a first generation person, you and especially yourself, like the elder or the person that like their family looks up to, you're holding space for everybody. You're figuring it out for everybody. You also have to be on standby if something happens because they're gonna call you first. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I'm saying like for our audience that may be having like the same role, just looking into maybe doing less or prioritizing themselves more.
Yeah. But what is the way that you unwind?
Me,
Like, yeah.
I have my moment. I'll maybe
Well,
like take off and like,
I'm seriously asking, like, what do you do? Like, when you're like, I have a lot on my plate. Because
I mean,
for that, everybody's different. For some people, they're more like, let me hit the streets, like let me go be social, like let me surround myself with like people of positive energy. And then like for me, like the way I unwind is like I like to be laying down in my bed watching Netflix in total quiet, probably a little dark. And that is like how I live my best life.
I think I'm more of a person that's depending. So me, like I used to have Friday, Saturday, Sunday booked, double booked, doing a tour. But now, as I'm getting older, I'll like one day out of the whole weekend is like nothing planned. Like I don't want to plan nothing. I don't want to do anything. And for me, when my mind is cluttered, I start cleaning or I'll start like refolding all my clothes or all my gavetas or whatever. I start cleaning because for me, my mind is too boggled. So I need to organize my space for me to feel better. And then if I could take off another day from work, then I'll do something for me. Like I'll go work out or I'll go do something, try something new, or I'll go have a solo date. So it's really depending on like what's going on in my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At this old age, I can only do one activity a day. If we're gonna go out in the nighttime, I am gonna be home all day until I have to leave.
Or I need a nap.
And most likely I'm gonna be home all day. I can only do one thing, tops two things. But I'm not doing brunch and dinner. I'm not doing like things with one friend and then another thing with another. No.
We're not doing that.
No.
Alrighty, guys. Stephany, can you tell the peoples where they can find you?
Yes, you can find me on healingseedstherapy.com, and you can find my Instagram online at Healingseedstherapy NC. Healing Seeds Therapy on Instagram on its own. So thanks for having me.
And
Thank you so much.
we're gonna
Go ahead.
have everything on the link on the description and like on the screen so they can find you easy. And we would love to have you for like another round.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, be vulnerable, being yourself. We appreciate you.
Yeah. Maybe we'll ask people to send us their problems.
Solve
Oh
it with Steph.
my gosh, I would love that. That's so fun.
I was gonna say, please follow, share, like, comment on all of our platforms. Remember, we are on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and Apple Podcasts. And one thing that I would like for everybody to take the time to support this um podcast is, which part of this episode stood out to you? What resonated the most with you? What can you identify yourself with? Leave that comment below. We would love to interact and see what was the most helpful out of this.
All right.
You wanna
Thank you, guys. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Till next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Spilling the Tea with Steve and Marlene.
Make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe on your favorite platform. Bye, guys.